Leinster have just lost their third major final in a row, a level of heartbreak no rugby fan can relate to, not even Claremont fans.
No rugby fan except for one, a Lions fan.
Between 2016 and 2018, the Lions lost 3 Super Rugby finals back to back to back. Since then, they have fallen from being top cats in South Africa to the poorest franchise in the whole of the URC. So what is the Lions story? How did they come so close and end up so far?
The origins of the Lions begin in 1889 with Transvaal Rugby. Transvaal came to global notoriety in 1993 when they became the first ever Super Rugby champions.
Was this to be a sign of things to come?
No, it wasn't.
In the following seasons, they failed to replicate this success, never winning more than half of their games.
They changed their name to the Lions in 1997, but this is where the politics of South African rugby start coming in.
It was decided that the union should move to a franchise model. The catchment area of the Lions was expanded and they changed their name to the Cats as they were a mix of the Lions, Pumas, Cheetahs,
the Leopards, the Tigers, the Top Cats, the Cheshire Cats, the Garfields?
In 2000 and 2001, the Cats did manage 2 top 4 finishes in Super Rugby, but mostly this era was spent down in 11th or 12th place in the league. In 2006, it was decided that the Cats concept didn't work and they went back to being just the Lions, but the results stayed the same. In 2010, they lost 13 games out of 13, and in 2012, they finished 15th out of 15 clubs in Super Rugby. After that, South African Rugby decided enough was enough and replaced the Lions with the Southern Kings in 2013.
A team you can learn more about by clicking on the pop-out banner up here. And that was the end of the Lions.
But not for long!
In 2014, they came back to Super Rugby with a brand new squad and a new coaching ticket. The players they were able to bring through included Malcolm Marx, Elton Jantjies, Faf de Klerk, Kwagga Smith, Aka van der Merwe and Franco Mostert. They decided to focus on free-flowing attacking rugby, and it worked.
Now it should be noted that we're entering something of an infamous time for Super Rugby. A time when too many teams were added and the confusing format basically guaranteed a South African team a place in the final.
Nevertheless, by 2016, the Lions had risen to second in the overall log and scored more tries than any other team in the whole tournament. They made their first final since 1993 away against the Hurricanes.
Make that 2 Hurricanes actually, as the game was played in wet and windy conditions that did not favour the Lions' game plan.
They lost the game 20 points to 3. In 2017, they were once again handed a favourable draw. This helped them to an overall top spot on the log and they once again went try crazy, scoring 81 in just 15 games. This time they hosted the Crusaders in Joburg and set an all-time attendance record for a Super Rugby final. Unfortunately, a young Kwagga Smith managed to get himself red-carded just 35 minutes into the game. The Satyrs won the first of their 7 titles in a row, 25 points to 17.
2018 saw yet another Super Rugby format, but the Lions still managed to keep hold of top South African spots.
This, however, was not enough to prevent them from having to travel to Christchurch once again and face the Crusaders. They lost their 3rd consecutive final, 37 points to 18. A mass exodus of top players and a much more competitive South African conference meant the Lions missed out on the playoffs in 2019.
And then came COVID, which is when the trouble really started. The Lions have never been good with money. No South African team is rich by European standards, but when other South African teams are making fun of you for being broke, you're really broke.
This, combined with some interesting management strategies, led to quite the list of melodramas, including turning up on tour with no kit, having to eat hot dogs as evening meals because they couldn't afford proper food, and the forwards coach accusing the chief analyst of spying on him. And then there's the stadium, which some believe has a unique reason for looking somewhat empty on match days.
Ellis Park, strange enough, when they host Park test matches, they tend to get a full crowd. But where Ellis Park is situated at the moment, it's in a high crime zone in Johannesburg. So it's close to Hillbrow in Johannesburg. So that's the main safety feature, I think, for Ellis Park.
Yeah. Someone else was telling me that as well, was that it's in a really dodgy area.
Yes, and the dodge is to get into the ground and to get out of the ground at night, you got to ride through that side of Johannesburg, and it's some people think it's not safe, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. For example, Loftus and the Cape Town Stadium and Kings Park, it's more central in those areas and much more easy to get to and get out of.
In 2019, New Zealand decided to kick the South Africans out of Super Rugby and send them up north to play in the URC. It's been extremely difficult for the Lions to compete in the URC, as the lack of money has made squad building virtually impossible.
They're struggling. To keep their players. They are struggling. That's the main problem. Every year you're seeing the other unions step into the Lions and buying a few players from them, and then they need to start from scratch again. So especially the Sharks, they tend to to target a lot of the Lions players. So that's the problem. I think financially they're struggling, and they're also not getting an income. They're not getting bums on seats.
And yet, despite all this, the Lions aren't actually that bad of a rugby team.
They might not be challenging for titles like the Bulls or the Stormers, but they still win around half of their games. In fact, they're probably the most fun team to watch in the URC right now.
I really like this Lions team. I love them.
They're
just
so fun.
They have a scrum and what? That's all they have. And yet, it's some really speedy outside backs.
In recent rounds, they have beaten former champions and current title contenders Leinster and Glasgow, the latter with just 14 men on the pitch. In the Leinster game, they counter-attacked so effectively that they scored 1 try for every 10 carries that they made. They have once again adopted an attacking game plan and look to hit teams on transition. They may be made up of players who didn't get picked for other franchises, but they've created a line of cult heroes, such as Prop and Slabakanye, the terrifyingly talented Emmanuel Shituka, and the pocket-sized magician Sanele Nohamba.
To end this video, we reached out to the best known Lions fan on the internet to get his view on what it's been like to support this franchise.
Hello, Riaan Louw here. And what is it like being a Lions rugby fan? I'd say it's been pretty fun. Even though we end up mid-table every year with a close to 50% record every year, and we lose a bunch of our most promising stars every year, I can't say it hasn't been fun. The Lions play a great brand of rugby that is bad for knockouts. They have a very good squad that has glaring issues at hooker and at the locks, and they have a good stadium in a very bad part of town. Get it? Everything good is tempered by something bad. A proper mid-table team. My realistic dream for the future is that we can keep a core group of players that are good enough to be Springboks, and then we build a good team around them. Maybe then we can tip the scales from always being 9th to always being 5th, or maybe even 4th. My pipe dream is I win the UK lottery, then take all those billions of rands, buy the union, build them a new stadium in a nicer part of town, and then hoover up all the box from around the world. I've got to go buy a scratch card. Bye!
This month, the Pirate Rugby is sponsored by Manscaped. Use code PIRATES20 for 20% off and free shipping on checkout. Cheers.
Nohamba looking for the drop goal. Steadies himself. Nohamba gets the 3 points.
Oh, let it easy, boy.